This is Dr. Ed Hoskins welcoming you to Lessons in Discipleship, a series designed to help new believers become established in their Christian faith. Today's session is Sharing the Gospel, Part 3. It's a sewing tool, asking questions and telling stories. Let me tell you a little about myself. I'm a retired physician. I spent 34 years in family medicine and student health. I became a Christian 50 years ago. I was helped early in my Christian faith by the Navigators, a non-denominational international Christian organization whose goal is to know Christ and to make him known. I've been on associate staff with that organization since 1980. Lessons in Discipleship is a compilation of what I learned during that time. What I learned then, I now pass on to you. Today's session, Sharing the Gospel, Part 3, asking questions and telling stories. I love asking questions and telling stories because it's receiver-oriented rather than sender-oriented. What does that mean? Well, in the Western world especially, we love to talk and we love to hear ourselves talk, but that's being sender-oriented. I think we need to be more receiver-oriented. A wise person once told me many years ago, God gave us 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. We should use them accordingly. Well, Jesus was the master in both asking questions and telling stories. Let's look at a simple Bible study I once did on how Jesus asked questions. Remember one Sunday afternoon many years ago, I just went through the Gospels and I found every place where Jesus asked a question. I wrote them down and looked at the context. Here are some of the questions that Jesus asked. What do you want me to do for you? To another person, he says, this one was his disciple Peter, who do people say that I am? To the Apostle Paul, on the road to Damascus, Jesus asked, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? To the woman at the well, Jesus said, where is your husband? To another disciple who was looking for him, he said, whom do you seek? To one of the Pharisees, Jesus once asked, which one will love him more? To another situation, Jesus asked, which son obeyed his father? To the disciples before the ascension, Jesus said, boys, have you caught any fish? I was always amazed at how asking questions could open up the hearts of other people. Suddenly you go from a more an intellectual basis down to an emotional level. Here are a few helpful questions I've used with my non-believing friends and with others. First off, could you tell me about your spiritual journey? I usually remind people that even if they're an atheist, everyone has a spiritual journey. Something happened to help them get there. And I ask them, tell me about your spiritual journey. Another question I like to ask, if you had a dream tonight and God came to you saying you could ask him for anything, what would you ask for? Here's 2 more fun questions I have used with some of my Muslim friends. Which one do you think existed first, God, his spirit, or his word? Another fun question. What makes a person clean or unclean in Islam? A good resource for asking questions is a simple little book called God Space. It's by Doug Pollock. At the back of his book, Doug includes a list of 99 possible questions, grouped with 3 questions for each of 33 topics. Incidentally, I've adapted a few of those for my own use. I encourage you to do the same. Keep a few stock questions in your pocket and see things that you can use. Memorize 1 or 2. Try one out the next time you're talking with an unbeliever. Questions can pry open hardened hearts. Pray and ask God for an opportunity to ask your questions. Now let's move on to storytelling. Equal to question asking, possibly my favorite form of truth sharing is telling stories. Everyone loves stories, providing that they're relevant, short, and well prepared. However, the most important personal story to tell is your own faith story. Every believer has one. First, a few recommendations. Keep it short. Practice it so that it's no more than 3 to 5 minutes. Second, pick a single significant thing from your own life as the glue for your story. Third, include a single verse of scripture to quote. You don't have to actually put the reference and numbers and setters. Just quote the verse. Make it short. Fourth, be sure to tell how Jesus became real for you. Fifth, eliminate common religious words and terms such as redemption or salvation or baptism or atonement, etc. Get someone else to help you practice telling it. I love this verse from Revelations 12:11. It says, they, the martyrs, they triumphed over him, Satan, by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Well, there are other great stories to tell too. Consider retelling the story of Jesus' parables. Depending upon how you count them, I've found 38 of them. They're easy to introduce, simply by saying, that reminds me of something Jesus the Messiah once said, and then telling the story. These stories are fantastic, and they really do open the minds and hearts of people. Sometimes using precious stories from your friend's culture is appropriate. An example here is the Book of Kings, the Iranian story of Shahnameh. It's an epic poem with the adventures of Rustam and Sohrab. We in the West don't relate to those stories, most of us. However, our friends do. Here's an interesting time. Once I was having dinner with a group of friends from Iran, and I said, I just finished reading the Shahnameh, and I was really impressed by it. Could you tell me a few of the major lessons I should learn from that poem? It's like someone turned on their power supply. I could see suddenly everything was moving in a good way, and they wanted to talk. Another one is the poem, the Rubaiyat by Omar Khayyam. You can find both of these, the Omar Khayyam story and the Shahnameh. You can find them online, for both. You can purchase them or from your Kindle. You try other stories, Alf Layla wa Layla from Scheherazade and 1001 Nights. You have to be kind of careful about this one because a number of these stories can get pretty racy. Finally, every culture has its own precious and valued stories. Some other interesting stories that a lot of my Arab friends love. The Khalila wa Dimna. These are animal wisdom stories. You can get them, they have both English translations now as well. Or the stories of Juha. In some parts of the Arab world, he's called Nasruddin Hoja. You can get these from your local bookstore or online, but they're wisdom stories and really make people smile. Well, let's summarize what we've learned in this brief presentation. First, God gave us 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. We should learn to use them accordingly. In other words, we want to be more receiver-oriented rather than sender-oriented. Second, memorize 1 or 2 simple questions. Use them out with some of your non-believing friends. Third, every believer must practice and use their own personal faith story. Fourth and final, keep questions and telling stories. Remember that asking these things, they're non-threatening. They are fun. They're easy ways to open spiritual conversations. Stories such as Jesus' parables are subtle, courteous, and mysterious. Well, we'll see you next time for another session on lessons in discipleship when we cover how to have a daily quiet time. That wraps up this session for this time. Thanks for coming and being a part. Remember, until next time, keep following Jesus. He's worth it.